Hey, well, it's Huck. And Huck is having a little dilemma early this week here. So let me tell you about it. I have been very fortunate in many ways. One of the ways I've been fortunate is that I've been receiving some very generous help for quite a while now, and it has really made all the difference in the world. You know, it's why I've got food on the table, why I can, you know, pay my medical bills and continue to get the care I need. And, you know, like right now I've been going to pulmonary rehab, and it really has made a big improvement in you know, how I get around and how I function. I've been able to get around, I've been able to put gas in my car, I've been able to, you know, buy the medications that I need, and, you know, I enjoy, you know, not an extravagant, but a modest TV package, you know, so I can have something to entertain myself. And I have what has become kind of essential for me is an internet connection at home, and that's, I pay more for my internet connection than I do for my TV. But having said all that, I've been fortunate in another respect, and that is that as I try to pay, you know, my medical bills and a couple of credit card debts that I kind of ran up, you know, because of emergencies that have come up or because of the trip that I took a couple of years ago, and I'm, you know, getting in the process of trying to pay those down. One of the things I haven't had to deal with is I haven't had a car payment. You know, my car has been paid off for about 5 years, and so and my car insurance has been very reasonable. You know, I pay basically $32 a month. If I paid it like every 6 months, it'd be about it'd come out to about $29 a month, I guess. It's charge about $4 extra fee or something because I pay it monthly. But at any rate, still that's reasonable, you know, for my liability coverage. So I don't have full coverage. 5 years ago, I was paying $158 a month, and you know, for my car payment on this Hyundai Sonata. And I was paying, it was reasonable, I think. It was about $77 a month for full coverage insurance. With Allstate, I think, is, you know, the company that I'm with. And, you know, and while that's, you know, reasonable, that's still, you know, $230 a month I don't have to worry about paying now, which is a big help. Well, that's why every time something has gone wrong with this car, I've always contemplated, well, do I really want to put this money into this car? You know, I had to have a whole brake line replaced about a year ago. It was like $400. I had front wheel assembly and some tie rods or whatever they are, I don't know, apparatus before that. More recently, now, just in the last couple of months, I've put a whole new exhaust system on that car and tires all the way around this year on my car because they were desperately needed. And so that's $1,000 right there that I put in this car. And like I say, every time something comes up, I ask myself, do I really want to put money into this car? This car is a 2004, and it's now 2019. So that's, you know, it's 14 going on 15 years old. And it, you know, has 145,000 miles on it, which isn't bad. That's a little over 10,000 miles a year, which is, you know, actually very good. But there's a lot of little nagging problems with it that I haven't bothered to get fixed. It has the antenna. It's got one of these power antennas that was broke the day I bought it, and they wouldn't fix it. And they wanted like $256 or something to repair that, and I've just never done it. It's also got the heater now. You know how, you know, you can turn the heater up from low all the way up to high? For some reason, the fan was making all kinds of noise every time I turned the fan on. You know, when you had the heat on or not. The fan was making all kinds of noise. And eventually, what happened was now it only works on high. Fan doesn't work unless you put it on high. And what I've noticed, which is weird, is heat will only come out if you have it on high. At least I don't feel anything coming out of there if you have it, you know, even a notch below. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. So I have to either have the heat on high or not on at all. The power window on the passenger side doesn't want to go down. I'm afraid to use it because it gets stuck. Sometimes it'll go up and sometimes it won't. So I just don't use the passenger side window. The driver's side window works fine because I just got that repaired finally. There's damage in the front. I had hit a deer years ago, and I didn't want to turn it into my insurance because I'm afraid my insurance would go up. And you know, so you can see there's damage in the plastic and stuff is cracked, and there's a little piece of the spoiler or whatever that is on the bottom there that's broke off. And the only real structural thing, though, that it did was it has made it impossible to align my headlights. My headlights kind of aim low, so I don't see as far out as I should when I'm driving at night, which is annoying. I have to turn the high beams on in order to see really a safe distance, which is not a good thing. But I can't adjust those headlights because the frame around the headlight is cracked there. And so the adjustment screws essentially don't work. So that was the only thing that affected, you know, from the front end damage. And there's rust around the rear wheels. So in a nutshell, you know, like I said, I've continued to put money into this car because the alternative is to get a car payment and a higher car insurance that I just couldn't afford. And up until now, every time I've been dealt with some kind of an issue with this car, it's always seemed the wiser course to go ahead and just put the money into this car. Until this weekend. Now I really have a tough decision because the car was making some kind of horrendous sound as I was going Saturday to go pick up my friend Dustin. He was going to come over here over the weekend to help me with you know, a few chores as he does, you know, once a week or whatever. And at any rate, I heard this womp, womp, womp sound. I was on the highway, and I pulled off the road real quick. I thought maybe I was having a flat tire or, you know, who knows, something in the wheel assembly. Anyway, eventually I did get it in to see a mechanic later that day, and after he took a long test drive, he discovered that he believes it's it has nothing to do with the wheels or the wheel assembly or the tires. It's a transmission problem, he thinks. He thinks it's the torque converter, to be more specific. And he said a repair would be, you know, like in the $2,000 range or more. And I'll tell you, it was so frightening driving it. Just about any time I drove the car up over 40 mile an hour, it'd start making this noise and shimmying, and I'm thinking, boy, I don't want to get stuck out in the middle of somewhere. So I have not really hardly driven the car. I took it out yesterday because I had a doctor's appointment right here, a couple blocks from home, and I took it to a used car lot here in town. I was looking at a couple of cars just to give me some kind of idea. They showed me a 2005 Chevy Impala, which is a little bigger car than I would really look for, but I know they have a good reputation. I have a friend that, well, Dutch father, swears by them. And I've heard real good things about, you know, the car is a decent engine and drivetrain and stuff. And this is a car with about 90,000 miles on it, 2005. And so it's like only a year newer than my car, but it looked like it was in immaculate condition, lower miles than my car. But you're looking at, I think he was going to get me in it for just under $4,000. But because of the age of the car and the way they'd have to structure the loan, you're still looking at maybe anywhere from $120 to $130 a month loan for, you know, like 48 months. And then on top of that, the car insurance would go up to about $100 a month. You looked at something a little newer with a little better gas mileage, at least on that lot, The only other thing that he had that he could recommend was a 2011 Chevy HHR. Now, I've seen those around. I always thought those looked to me like they look very similar to like the Chrysler PT Cruiser. And I know the PT Cruiser, you know, when they first came out, I always thought they looked kind of cool. You know, the retro paneled 40s truck look. And so that's kind of how I, you know, kind of always view the HHR. If anything, I thought it was even a cheaper, you know, attempt. But apparently, the two vehicles are not really comparable, other than, you know, their retro look. The HHR, from what I understand, is a little better vehicle, although it's got a very cheap plastic interior that a lot of people don't like. But it sits on the frame of like a Chevy Cruze, and you know, most of the things I've read about the car in the reviews I've read, you know, don't speak you know, badly about it. But at any rate, that being much newer, 2011, and again with about 90,000 miles on it, I can get that loan down to, well, you stretch it out for more time, so I think this is like a 60-month loan, 5 years. You're looking at around $84 a month, though. So, I mean, those, I'm not sure that I would want to go either route with that, but that's just to give you an idea. You're looking at a car loan for 3 years or more for, you know, well over $100. And the insurance on either one of those cars, the insurance on the HHR would actually be a little bit more. But either way, you're still looking at around $100, 90 to 100 and something a month. So I know when I was looking back in 2009 when I bought the Sonata, the reason I bought the car was I had been driving a Chevy Cavalier, and I had, you know, had paid the car off, and I was running up tons of miles on the car, and I liked the idea I didn't have a car payment. So, you know, I just continued to drive that car until I couldn't drive it much more. I had about 240,000 miles on it when I finally got rid of it. The only reason I did get rid of it was because my mom couldn't get in and out of the Cavalier anymore. Her health being what it was and her balance being what it was. She literally almost would fall down into the seat, and she'd have to be helped up out of it because it sat so low. So I got this car, the Sonata, basically because it was much easier for her to get in and out of. You know, and but of course, you know, I was working then. This was before I had all these health issues and my mom's income, my income. You know, I could afford, you know, $150 a month car payment. You know, and I think, like I said, my insurance was about $77 a month. That is not the situation I'm looking at right now. In all honesty, although I have looked around and I've looked everywhere. I mean, I have spent hours on, like, you know, online looking like at Auto Trader, and I've looked at every parameter I can think of. Cars of $1,500. And by the way, you can't find anything for $1,500 at all. The only $1,500 cars I could find, and I found a slew of them, was on Facebook Marketplace. But they all have miles that are like 220 or more thousand miles, 220,000 miles or more. They're all older than my car. You don't get nothing for $1,500. Like I say, it has really surprised me at, you know, the difference in the used car market today as opposed to when I was looking for a car back in 2009. There was a huge category. I mean, I was even finding articles online back then of, you know, good used car buys for under $5,000. No such thing exists today. I was looking back then. I was looking for a car that had, you know, that was about 5 years old, that had, you know, about 12,000 miles or less a year, around 60,000 miles. 5 years old, 60,000 miles, and my budget back then was like $7,000. Well, first of all, I don't have a budget of $7,000 that I can work with. And after I went to this car dealer yesterday, and they were explaining that it was going to cost me $100 a month to get into these cars that were under $4,000, I realized that I don't have even $4,000 to play with. So like I said, so I've been looking at, you know, for cars under $3,000, cars under $2,000. And first of all, you can't find any cars for under $5,000 that have less than 50,000 miles. You just can't find them. You might find some cars that are just under 100,000 miles. But they're not 5-year-old cars. They're, well, unless they're like a Cobalt, which, you know, I keep see popping up, or a Chevy VO. I mean, there's a couple of cars that are, I don't know if they're just poorly made cars or they just don't hold their value very well, but there's a couple of cars that pop up, but they're, the ones that I've seen, you know, they've got high miles, we're like in the 100,000 mile range or whatever, and they're at least, you know, 10 years old, you know, 2008, 2009, and then maybe you can get into a car for $5,000. So, anyway, I can't justify it. First of all, I'm only able to pay the bills I've got now because of the help I've been receiving. I can't commit myself to making payments on a car that I don't know whether next month I'd even have the money to make the payment. There are 7 million Americans, it came out in the news this week, that there are 7 million Americans that are at least 90 days behind in their car payment. And, you know, that's a pretty good indication of just how, you know, desperate, you know, folks are, you know, with the kind of paycheck to paycheck existence so many Americans are living under right now. And, you know, there's 45 million Americans with no health insurance. There's something like 40% of Americans can't, you know, don't have resources to deal with a $400 emergency. I can only, you know, every time I've had to do something, I've done it because I've been receiving help. And so I've got a few credit cards that I'm trying desperately not to use until I have an emergency. Inevitably, I end up having to use them for whatever, you know, thing that comes up. And so that's the situation I'm in right now. I'm trying to desperately decide whether I should put the, I don't know what it is, $2,000 into this car when it's got all these other problems that I can't address and the car's already 15 years old. Or should I make a commitment to buy some other things? Should I maybe just buy a, you know, some kind of a car that will be a runner that I can, you know, like I said, I don't know. I don't know how people do it. I have a cousin that every year or so, every year or two, she's in the market for another car, and she doesn't have a lot of money either. She's on a disability income, and she's got some friends that help her find a car, and she never seems to pay even $1,000. She gets she likes these old vans for some reason, and she's always hauling you know, her family around and whatever. And but I don't have I haven't been able to find any kind of a transportation vehicle that my health being what it is, I'm very afraid of being in a car, especially, you know, in these colder winter months, being stuck out on the road somewhere for any period of time. So, you know, I want at least some level of reliability if I can. But so at any rate, that's a decision I'm stuck with here, is whether or not I should. I've got to make a decision here this week whether to take my car in and just put this all on a credit card and get the damn thing repaired, or whether to. My friend Dustin said maybe what I should do is take an equal amount of money of what it would cost to get my car fixed, $1,500, $2,000. Maybe I'm thinking when they finally get the car up on the rack and start looking at the transmission, The part alone that they were talking about, I looked it up. It's $800, $801.99 or something for this torque converter for this particular vehicle. I know once you get into transmission, you're talking serious labor charges. So I guess that's how they're coming up with the $2,000. But I'm also thinking once they get in there, they're going to find other things that need to be or should be replaced too. I don't know anything about transmissions, but I know that they've got gears and other things, and those things inevitably wear. And so once they get it apart, even if the torque converter is the thing that's causing the problem, inevitably, I'm guessing they're going to find a few other things that they're going to feel like, well, while we're in here, we might as well do this because this is going to go before long. And that's what I say. So I don't know what I'm actually looking at with the transmission. They said, in the $2,000 range. I'm guessing it could be a little bit higher than that. I don't know. So, anyway, my friend Dutch said I should look and maybe just buy something for, $1,500 instead. And I don't know. Anyway, I've got to make a decision this week. What would you do in my situation? What do you suggest? Like I say, I really, really can't see making a commitment. I'm not in a position to make that. They'll loan anybody the money. It's not that my credit rating is bad. I've worked real hard to get my credit rating back up to, something decent since I went that 9 months or whatever it went without any income there waiting for my disability. So my credit rating is bad. Well, it's not great, but it's fair or, nearly good. I think it's, the last time I checked, my credit rating has gone up to about 685, 681, 685. It hit a low, an all-time low of 580 back a couple of years ago when I was on disability, and I was really just scrambling to make, the mortgage payment and pay the utility bills, and I had to leave a couple of things, go that went into collection until I got that all straightened out. And but that, put a severe hit on my credit rating, I think the highest my credit rating ever was that I can remember, at least in recent years, is like in the 720s. I think that's where it was when I bought my Sonata in 2009. I think those days, I guess, are over. At any rate, so that's what's going on here in the Huck's life. Now, I've got to make a decision here because, like I said, right now I've had to call off my pulmonary rehab for this week, and I'm afraid to take my car very far, and so I'm either going to have to take it in and get it repaired, or I'm going to keep looking at, like I say, cars in the $1,500, $2,000 range. But boy, there's some pretty there are cars that are older than my car, more miles in most cases than my car, and more rust in most cases than my car. You don't get much for $1,500, at least from what I'm seeing. I'm going to keep looking. But like I said, I almost pulled the trigger yesterday on, one of these other cars, and I just thought, I cannot commit myself to almost $200 a month. Just can't do it. Can't do it. Won't do it. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I feel terrible about being in this situation. But it reminds me of how fortunate I've been for a few years here without having a car payment to deal with. And like I say, if I get this car repaired, though, that's going to go on a high interest credit card that's not going to be easy to pay off either. You know what I mean? We're talking, I have to be paying $100 a month on that, for God knows how long. Well, actually, I have one Discover, I have a Discover card with a $3,000 credit limit, and I think right now I only have about $178 or something charged to it, because I just don't use it, because it's kind of high interest. I think it's like 22% interest. It's ridiculous. So they keep sending me these incentives to use the card. And I just recently got, I think they sent me 2 checks, you know, that I can write out to anything for any purchase. It even suggests that I can write it out to myself, you know, and just cash it, you know. At any rate, if I use these checks by, I don't know what it is, early March or something, they will only charge me, I think, 5.99% interest for 1 year. So, theoretically, I could get the car fixed, or I could buy a car for, I don't know, $2,000, and use this check, and I'd only pay basically 6% interest for the first year. And, you know, if I could pay the debt off, the card off within a year, then, so I have another credit card that I don't use at all. And it's, they've done the same thing. They sent me a couple of checks. And but this card, it only has a $1,000 credit limit. And if I write anything on their check, it's 0% interest for a year, or I think it's, I don't know, 6% or 8% for 18 months, one or the other. You know, I don't know. I'm not, well, at any rate, so those are options that I have. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm thinking seriously of getting the car repaired using one of these checks. Because it's, you know, it's long term, it's a lot, you know, less of a commitment financially than, you know, getting another car. And being tied down for a couple of years with payments that I can't guarantee I'd ever be able to pay. The second thing is, you know, if I can't pay it, well, they can take my credit card away, but they won't take my car away, you know, if I get the car repaired. If I buy another vehicle and get a loan and I put myself in a situation where suddenly, you know, I don't have the money to pay it, they will take the car. So, you know, anyway, that's where I'm at. That's what Huck is struggling with today. I hope your day is going a little better than mine. Anyway, I look forward to hearing from you. What would you do in my situation? I'm going to let you go now. I'm going to take another look at the marketplace and see what kind of cars are out there for $1,500 or so. Probably going to take my car and get it repaired. See you later. Have a great day. Be kind to one another.